I really truly believe that we have so much potential, and to optimize and also to be at peak levels in our lives and business. But most people are not utilizing that. It's overlooked. And just like myself, I'm guilty of that for a long time. Like we talked about, Omar, that I was always buying like the next business coaching program, the next strategy, the next tactic. But what I really needed to focus on was me, right? Like really understanding, do I have the energy level that I need to work the hours I need, right? Do I have the mental clarity to make the decisions I need to make in my business? Am I emotionally supported? Like, is my team that I'm leading are working at their, peak performance, things like that. And then ultimately at the end of the day, am I connected to my purpose, right? Which is that spiritual piece of like, why are you doing this thing? Because as far as everyone else who's listening, entrepreneurship is hard, right? Like you just don't wake up one day and say, I'm going to start a business. There is a really, I want to say, deep calling to why someone wants to be a business owner.
Welcome to another episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. I'm your host, Omar Cumberbatch of omarcumberbatch.com. So excited for you to join me today. We have an awesome guest in Dedee Cai. Wow, what a great show. And she really just brought out so many interesting things. She is the founder of Fit to Profit. And we just dive into how we believe equally that self-worth equals net worth. And what she's put together is a program that really addresses all the facets of entrepreneurship, mind, body, spirit, everything, just in its totality, so that you can thrive in your business. And this is one of the things that I felt that was really empowering, because a lot of things, even when we're dealing with our clients, like how do you bring out the best components of them, right? And also understand that during that journey, they might not be ready for that, and really to kind of assess whether or not they want to take these steps. So I thought this was a really interesting conversation. We did get a lot of awesome nuggets off air that I'm going to hopefully be able to encapsulate in the show notes, and you'll be able to check that out at omarcumberbatch.com. I'm sorry, omarcumberbatch.com. And basically, yeah, I think it'll be worthwhile definitely taking a look over there as well. Of course, my course is on there to help health coaches get their businesses moving with the art of podcasting and how to get that off the ground as well. As always, please leave a rating and review, and I'll continuously get the awesome guests like Dedee Cai on the show to spread her wisdom and knowledge about all things on the entrepreneurial and health coach space. Let's jump into the show. Hey, Dedee, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Oh my goodness, fantastic. Thanks, Omar. Thanks so much for having me today.
Yeah, no, really excited about this conversation. We had a great off the air conversation, and I had a bunch of questions for you initially, but I might redirect a lot of the show just based off on what we discussed, because I think it's very relevant, especially for health coaches starting out, looking for help, looking for answers. Myself, I have a course, and I know that a lot of people do jump into courses. They do jump into business coaching, and they do a lot of things. And then there's an element that we may have to start off with before we are even able to have the capacity to reap the benefits from that. So I have definitely a selfish component to this show, because I think of it as myself, who has spent quite some money on courses and coaching as well. But also, if my course wants to be successful in the people who I serve, they may have to do a little bit beforehand just so that they can absorb everything that I'm offering. So I really got that from our initial conversation. So we'll touch on that as well. But I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to the audience and let them get to know a little bit about you and what you're up to. And we'll jump into questions right after that.
Sounds good. So yes, I'm Dedee Cai. I am the founder of a company called Fit to Profit. And everything started from my own personal journey. To be honest, I came from the brick and mortar space. I ran salons and restaurants with my mom as a business partner for years before I got completely burnt out. And I mean, burnt out to the point where I was looking well on the outside. I was happy from the outside. I was doing all of the things, like I was the shaker and mover, but I was actually depressed. I was anxious, and I also had moments of the dark side, where I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who I was supposed to be, or what I'm supposed to be doing. So long story short, I was forced to really take a big step back. So I did, and took some time for myself, really revamp my diet, my health, and recentered. And that's how it really started for me. I started running long distance, got into practice yoga. And then before I knew it, I wanted to learn more about how to holistically heal myself from all the stress and all of the heartache that I had in previous years. And I enrolled myself to be a holistic health coach. And what was interesting is I discovered the whole coaching industry in the program, in the section where they said, actually, you can turn this into a vocation, a job. And to myself, I said, wait, no, I was just going to learn more about health and wellness for myself. But you tell me I can make a living out of this? And everything came full circle for me, because when I was in college, I wanted to be a therapist. And so coaching was similar to being a therapist, but I didn't have to write prescriptions. So it was like, wow, this is amazing. And what was funny is that I started pitching my program, but no one really wanted to buy that. They all said, oh, I'm healthy, I'm okay. But because of your brick and mortar experience, could you teach me to start my business? And so I said, okay. I had no reason not to, and I was open to just working with anyone at the point. So I fell into business development and consulting since 2015. And what's really interesting is I worked with clients for the first 3 years, and I realized that people always had the ups and downs, like the highs and the lows. It's like feast and famine. Like it's like they either give up on the project too soon, or they got sick in between, things like that. And just got me really thinking, what is missing? Right? Like the strategies there, these are the things that I did and I found success in them, but actually more than half, I want to say 65% of the people, almost 70%, were like really struggling. So I was being asked to really look and have deeper conversations with my clients. And what I realized was that my clients were not taking care of themselves. And they were burning the candle from each end. They were not sleeping. They were not eating healthy options. They were not taking care of themselves. And how funny. I wasn't doing that. That's how I got burnt out. That's how I was forced to take a step back. And so then I started having conversations, not only just on the strategy side of things with business with them, but I was also holding them accountable for taking care of themselves. And when I talk about like all the other areas, I mean like on a physical level, on a mental level, on the emotional level, and even on the spiritual level, in terms of how do they have the space, right? Like to even process what's going on in the business or in their personal lives. And honestly, that's how Fit to Profit was born, with the intention to really help entrepreneurs to set up the foundation to be successful, but from the inside out. So yes, that's how it started. That's how I've been doing, and this is what I'm up to in the world. I really truly believe that we have so much potential, and to optimize and also to be at peak levels in our lives and business, but most people are not utilizing that. It's overlooked. And just like myself, I'm guilty of that for a long time. Like we talked about, Omar, that I was always buying like the next business coaching program, the next strategy, the next tactic. But what I really needed to focus on was me, right? Like really understanding, do I have the energy level that I need to work the hours I need, right? Do I have the mental clarity to make the decisions I need to make in my business? Am I emotionally supported? Like, is my team that I'm leading are working at their, peak performance, things like that? And then ultimately at the end of the day, am I connected to my purpose, right? Which is that spiritual piece of like, why are you doing this thing? Because as far as everyone else who's listening, entrepreneurship is hard, right? Like you just don't wake up one day and say, I'm going to start a business. There is a really, I want to say, deep calling to why someone wants to be a business owner. Because I really truly believe that it's beyond just making a living, especially if someone has been in it for a long time. So that spiritual component has to be there for them to really understand and really connect the dots. So that's my I want to say medium version length answer to your question of how did I get here?
Yeah, no, great answer. And I appreciate the thoroughness in that medium version of the answer because you touched on a lot of things. And I definitely think, again, like how we opened up the show is that, yeah, there is some things that we need to do first. And we do have to look inward first and really get an idea of what we're capable of actually doing. And one of the things that I remember reading through your website and all the stuff that you gave me is this idea of your self-worth and how it equals your net worth. And I don't think many people step into the arena thinking of it like that. Can you talk about what that actually means and why is it so important to establish that before you do step out on this journey?
Oh my goodness, 100%. And I love this topic so much. And first and foremost, before we even go deeper, into the conversation, I always like to take the word and actually define it, right? Like for ourselves, right? So what is self-worth? Right? Like there's different versions, and I just want to share a couple of them that I've done research on and what I've been teaching on. The first one is usually by dictionary.com, right? Self-worth is the sense of someone's own value, right? Or worth as a person. In other words, self-respect, right? Self-worth is like more of the internal sense that I am good enough, right? That I am worthy or I am deserving. And oftentimes in our modern society right now, we get that confused self-worth with self-esteem. Okay, I just want to really clarify that. Self-esteem is more from all of the external factors of achievement, successes. If I did this thing, if I have this thing, then I should be, worthy or I should be confident, right? Like these words are all mixed up all the time. Self-worth, self-confidence, and also self-esteem are all kind of mumble jumble together, but we need to be clear. What I'm referring to is self-worth from within, the internal belief, the internal knowing that we are worthy. Because if you really think about it, each and every one of us is a human being created, with a purpose. And on that very basic level, we need to know that we are worthy right off the bat, right? Like before anything else, okay? Mm-hmm. And then, so that's the definition of really knowing your own value, okay? And then the definition of net worth is the total wealth of an individual, company, household, taking in account of course, financial assets, all of that. We don't have to go there, but very clearly, it's just how much can someone have produced in a level of wealth, right? Mm-hmm. And the connection is, unless we feel value, like there's value for us to provide, and that what we provide is valuable, you're not going to be able to see the return of that in the expression of whatever it is that you do in exchange for it, right? Mm-hmm. If you are not feeling worthy, you're not going to do the things that are going to actually yield you the results that you want to create. And oftentimes, if we're not handling the worthy piece, which I'm going to the conversation now after the definition is very clear, right? Like it's the intrinsic value of self-respect, okay? Then if you don't feel worthy from the inside, chances are we engage in pretty destructive behaviors or patterns that is not actually supporting us towards our goals. And on all levels, right? It could be simple as on a physical level, right? Maybe you're not taking care of yourself. Like, you let go so easily and you prioritize everyone else's first. and you put yourself last. You're not sleeping, obviously, for most of us entrepreneurs. I'm a mompreneur, if you want to say that. I have kids too, and everything is them, and and not really being able to see that I cannot operate from an empty cup. So from a physical level, I have less and very little energy, right? And then on a mental level, when you're not feeling worthy, you're just going to rely on your limiting beliefs about yourselves, right? Like there's this mental blocks, or there's also I want to say struggle in, do I want to take this particular tactic and really go with it? There's always going to be that spiral where you're going to be listening more to the negative thoughts versus the more, positive. And on an emotional level too, most of us are also, if we're not really aware and taking care of ourselves and feeling worthy of being supported, we will indulge in drama. Right. That's why TV is amazing, right? Like reality TV is amazing because misery loves company. When we're not emotionally supported, we want to see other people who are in the same boat, who are not emotionally supported. And then that self-pity comes in. And then so that is like becomes that vicious cycle. And then the spiritual piece I already mentioned earlier too, you become more jaded, unpurposeful, and even unfaithful, with yourself and your effort and with anything else that that you believe in. So that is why I don't think this conversation is talked about. It's definitely overlooked, and it's also I want to say more taboo too, because everyone is all into confidence about what it's just supposed to look like from the outside. Again, I am my own advocate here, is that I did that. Like everything looks good from the outside. Most of us are looking good from the outside, but intrinsically, internally, how do we feel about ourselves? Because if we did feel great about ourselves and that we are worthy, we don't have to do a lot of proving. We don't have to do a lot of covering up and hiding. So that's what I have to say about that.
So let me ask you a question. And again, this is kind of not where I want to go with this. So, I mean, I guess maybe we won't dive into it too much, but you're obviously out there, you're marketing, you're doing a lot for your business. Do you outline some of that or highlight some of your deficiencies to the world to make them feel better, or are we supposed to pretend like everyone else on social media that everything is great?
Yeah, and what's really interesting, I love the question, Omar, is that what we forget as business owners and marketers in general, and is that people connect to people. They don't connect to the product or the service. And the more, I would say, from in my experience and what I teach, the more genuine and transparent you are with where you are is how you attract the right people. Because guess what? Gold is gold, right? Even if it's melted with fire, it's still gold.
This is true. Yeah.
Right. And so it's not about portraying to be someone else, but it's more so, this is why it's important for you to be connected emotionally and mentally, right? So that way you can share from a good place. And listen, if once you pretend to be like the person that you're not supposed to be, or the person that you're not, you're going to have to come up with the next thing and the next thing and the next thing that is going to cover up. And it's not, I'm going to say that it's not a healthy place to be.
I do not disagree at all with that. Yeah, it's like you said, it's very hard to keep up with the facade. So I have no doubt about it. So one of the things that I was curious about you is like, what was it that you had to overcome, if anything, regarding, your self-worth? And I'm always curious about just hearing your story when it comes to that. And I know our upbringings have a huge impact on this stuff, and it's often overlooked. So if you give us a glimpse into what that looked like and what you had to possibly overcome for yourself.
Oh my goodness. So to be transparent, I feel like I am a work in progress, right? Like there's always that next level. And definitely that's why I really feel like for us, the emotional piece needs to be looked at for every single person on this planet. Okay. Is that, yes, the upbringing how we were raised and how we were treated has everything to do with how we feel about ourselves. And I, of course, this is not a conversation for that, and I'm not a psychotherapist or none of that, but through the work that I have been putting in through the years and up into this point, that we have to look at, how we're, our experience from zero to 8,
Hmm.
and how we are now as adults is literally that little girl, the little boy from 0 to 8. And that needs to be handled, that needs to be addressed. And for me, I just realized that when I was a teenager, I just never felt like I belong, anywhere. I was abandoned, as a kid. I was physically abused and all of the things. So yeah, like name the overcoming situations, right? So of course, because of my experiences, so then I didn't feel very worthy when I was in my teens. And that's why in my early 20s was when I felt completely lost and was like, why am I supposed to be here? Like how am I supposed to do this thing called life? Like what does that look like for me? So that, I know we're getting pretty deep on all of this stuff, but overcoming the emotional, I want to say the emotional, processing the emotional experiences that you have had in the past is going to be very important. Because I can tell you, I've done the mindset work like to beat it to death, right? But until I got into the emotional side of things was when things really opened up for me, right? Because the conscious mind, the subconscious mind are I want to say related, but the subconscious mind is what rules everything. The emotional healing needs to happen for you to basically rewire your subconscious mind for you to be able to do the work, whatever it is that you need to do to be successful.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear that story that you've overcome so much and to become such a success. And again, we're all works in progress, so we do always hit a ceiling at some point, and that's what we eventually have to work through. So I want to know, what would you suggest are some practical steps to actually increase our feelings of our self-worthiness?
Yeah, so I would say really start looking at how you're feeling, right? Like on just a daily basis, right? First and foremost, like I would say, how do you feel at the end of the day?
Hmm.
Do you feel depleted? Do you feel tired? Do you feel excited? And take a moment just to reflect, right? On, wow, is this what I want my life to be?
Hmm.
Because and lean into that and really begin to really trust yourself to make that decision of like, no, I'm not sure if I like this, where I am right now. So reflection is really, really important, and just really seeing, where you are and really seeing that's the first piece. And then, okay, if it's not exactly how you want it, then what needs to change? Because even that process of doing that get you to consider what else that needs, like, that is not happening already,
Mhm.
right? And even the process of allowing yourself the time to ask yourself, how are you feeling about your day, already helps you to elevate your self-worth that much more, because you actually care about you,
Mhm.
right? Besides anyone else, and anything like that. Like, you don't have to wait until someone asks you, how are you? But even when they ask you, how are you, to be like, oh, it's good. Is it really good? Let's tell the truth here, right? So that's what I would say is the first step, is to really start being, mindful, introspective, and also ask yourself that question of like, am I happy? Do I love what I'm doing? If not, like, what needs to change? Because I know for me, that's how it all started.
Mhm.
When I was like, what am I doing? I don't like what's going on. If anything, I hated what was going on. And
Mhm.
then that from one question to the next was when I really, really shape, and aligned my whole life, and that's how I got here today.
So let me ask you that. Once you did recognize it, what was that first step right after that conversation that you had with yourself, recognizing that you weren't happy at that point? Did
Mhm.
you do something specific right afterwards, or was it a series of things that, and you don't have to go into each one,
Yeah,
but kind of
yeah,
curious, like that first step?
yeah. The work for anyone after that would be, well, then if this is not what you want, then what do you want? Right? Create a list. So that's literally like the best thing is knowing what you don't want.
Yeah, yeah.
And now you can actually create like start with, okay, what do I want? And then that would be the next step. And then everything, it's really, it's really history, right? It's like,
Mm.
and then committing to, okay, I'm going to change this. I'm going to change this thing. If it's, and really believing that, I get to be responsible, for my life.
It's interesting because as you're speaking and you're giving us, well, giving me and the audience hardcore practical answers to these questions. In my mind, I'm thinking about, okay, how do I outsource that? How do I like who do I have, what course do I have to take?
Right,
Looking for the
right,
strategy again. And that's
right.
the problem, right? So I think one of the things that I think that is beautiful about what you're doing is that you don't have to necessarily go through that strategy when you're actually trying to figure yourself out. And it's really an internal conversation and discussion that you need to have absent everything else on the outside.
Yeah, I want to connect to this too for the health coaches that are listening to you. You may have heard of this, somewhere along your certification or your program and things like that to get here as a coach. But what's really interesting is unless you do this work, you're not going to know who you want to serve.
Mm,
And even if you did, if they ask you, why do you care? How are you going to speak about that?
mm,
Right. And it's again, like you can be giving the best scripts from the best marketer, but even if you regurgitate the words, it's not going to be received because everything is through energy and connection of you being who you are. And unless you're connected with who you are, you can't sell.
yeah, it's true.
And if you can't sell from a good place, you're not going to feel very worthy.
Hmm.
And it's like that vicious cycle, right? And then like nothing is working. So that's why strategies is not always the way to go. You have to know where you are, which season you are in the business to really know what it is that you need. And that's the most important.
No, I definitely agree. And I'm coming to that understanding every day as I move through these journeys. So I definitely appreciate that advice. So one of the things that I would want to give you an opportunity to is because of course you guys at Fit for Profit touch on all of this stuff, but you guys do a whole world of other things as well. Can you talk about what it is and especially what's upcoming? I'm really excited to share that stuff as well with the audience.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about a very holistic mentorship program that we're putting out. It's called 10x Your Performance. And I have coaches who are going to be focused on each of every one of the areas I have mentioned, the mental, emotional, spiritual, and also physical. So each of the coaches is going to walk you through your own journey of where you need to get yourself fit on those areas. And at the end of the 6 months, you will get to see the transformation of where you started and where you end up with. And this is specialized for all entrepreneurs at all levels, because as you know, Omar, you would agree that there's always that next level. So no matter if you are just starting, I highly recommend it, even more so than someone who's been in business longer. When you've been in business longer, you kind of know what it takes, and you probably have already a semi of a system already in place to support yourself and be thriving. But if you're brand new to entrepreneurship, or if you're under $100,000 in revenue per year, I highly recommend this program because it will set you up for success from the most foundational level.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like we set you up on, and especially if you're a health coach, right? Like every coach needs a coach. If you're a health coach, can you proudly say that your physical health is at 100, right? Or 10, right? Like if you do a scale, And if it's not, you always going to up level that, right? So we take care of you physically, mentally, emotionally. We have a psychotherapist who is going to do somatic therapy and coaching for the emotional side of things to help you really heal some trauma from the past. I'm really excited about that piece. And then the mental side is I get to teach you on how to really set up the right mindset to be successful. And then how to incorporate spirituality, a little bit of the reflection work into your day. And not to say that you have to do this separately then and away from anything that you're already in right now. This is only going to actually catapult you forward because it's going to make sense for you in terms of how you can work the strategies in between all of these and make sure that you have energy and the clarity to operate at peak performance.
No, I love it. That's one of these things that I wish I had known about before all my thousands of dollars of
Yeah,
oh.
selfishly, I created this for me because I had to buy every single piece of this separately.
Yeah.
And now you have it all. And I just feel like because we're all holistically, we have different facets of our lives and like the way we operate. So it has to be taken care of from a very holistic standpoint. And you can't have one without the other.
No, I totally agree. And I'm glad that you brought up like some keywords like the foundational pieces, because I think health coaches yearn for those foundational pieces, but we sometimes put it in the wrong category. I always think it's like, foundation. Oh, do I have to start an LLC? Yeah, that's a foundational piece, but is it is it A or is it C as far as that
Yeah.
goes? So it's
Yeah.
one of those things that I think at the micro level, it's definitely the most important thing to really establish. So I definitely appreciate that. So Dedee, you've been fantastic. I want to give you an opportunity to give the audience the location of where you are, where you're going to be on as far as your social media handles, your website, and all that good stuff, and especially how they can get into this 10X course coming out very soon.
Yes. You can find me on www.fit2profit.com. I am Dedee Cai on all of the social media platforms, just me. You can find me Deedeecai is my first and last name. And yeah, I'm excited to connect with you all, especially I have also a Facebook group called Fit to Profit, peak performance for entrepreneurs. You can find me there as well. And yeah, I trust me, if you want to find me, you know where to find me.
And again, one of the things I always give a lot of kudos to when someone has a great www dot name, when they got the domain name sewn up, fit for profit is perfect. I mean,
Yeah, it's actually fit to profit.
I'm
So you
sorry, fit to
fit to profit. I say that because honestly, a year after I established my business, there is someone who is for profit, but they do financing and things like that. But
no,
for us, it's fit to profit. You have to be fit to profit.
but
Yeah.
exactly, still a great name, and that's why I get jealous of people who come up with these things. Like you must have had this either in the beginning or you paid a pretty penny for it. I always say that.
I think it just again maybe it's divine guidance. I don't know, but it's from the beginning of time.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm glad that you were able to secure that. It's easy for everyone to remember too. So yeah, no, I really appreciate you being on the show, giving this underlying foundational piece that all health coaches definitely do need. And I thank you for taking the time out to share with us today.
Oh my goodness, thank you. Thank you for honestly doing what you do, putting the word out there, helping everyone who is on the journey. So I appreciate you and so much. And thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I have a great rest of the day.
You too.
Hope you enjoyed listening to today's episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. If you did, jump over to iTunes and leave a rating and or review. It goes a long way in helping get this message out to our fellow health coaches and people in our industry. Also, if you can, jump over to my website, omarcumberbatch.com, where I give out a lot of freebies, including my 5-day sugar challenge for people who are having issues with sugar. And also for health coaches, I have the book, Hidden. It's the 6 not so obvious ways to get your clients unstuck. Have a great day.